So, guys, over the last couple sessions, what we've done, right, is we've talked about the dream, which is 10 to 15 years out, the mission that's 3 to 5 years out. We've talked about goals, which are 6 to 12 months out. We've talked about how to plan your weeks and your days so that you can meet your goals. So now we're going to switch over to the Hard 90 philosophy, which is, based on the, 15 years that Hard 90's been around, we've learned a number of character traits that go into successful mindset, attitude, behavior. And so this next section is going to be, how do you approach the journey to get to your dream? And, I'm really excited about going through that. But before we do, is anybody watching The Last Dance, the Michael Jordan documentary?
No.
No one's watching it, huh? Parker, you're not watching it?
No, but I'm reading Michael Jordan biography right now for.
Well, the Last Dance is on ESPN right now. And I believe it's an 8-part series. Every Sunday night, they're showing 2 parts. And then during the week, they're repeating the parts that they showed on Sunday. And I highly recommend you guys watching it. The first 2 sessions were Sunday, and it really brought me back to when Michael Jordan was playing and just how great of an athlete and how great of a competitor he was and what went into that. And so, today we're really going to be talking about do your best, but the Hard 90 principles really are 4. The first one is you're going to do your best every day. The second is you're going to work together with your team. The third is you're going to overcome adversity. And the fourth is you're always looking to learn. And when you look at Michael Jordan and what he did, he really embodied those principles as he became the greatest basketball player, if not the greatest athlete that ever played. So highly encourage you guys to watch it. Who'd like to read the Bobby Jones quote?
I can.
Okay, go ahead.
Competitive sports are played mainly on a 5.5-inch court, the space between your ears. Bobby Jones.
So what does that mean?
The sport's mostly in your brain, kind of. Like.
Okay.
It's in your.
Yep, and Yogi Berra once said, right, baseball is 90% mental and the other half's physical, right? And so the whole idea there is your mindset is everything when you approach the game, but it's also everything as you're going on your journey. I mean, some of you guys put out dreams that are 10 to 15 years out there, and what's going to carry you through or get you there is your mindset as you go through that process. And so, the first one we're going to talk about is doing your best. But before we dig into that, who'd like to read the Homer Rice quote?
I will.
Okay.
You can motivate by fear, and you can motivate by reward, but both those methods are only temporary. The only lasting thing is self-motivation.
Okay. So Taylor, can you give me an example of how you can motivate by fear?
If you're scared of something and you fear it, then it's more likely that you're going to want to get away from that thing and do whatever you can. So you're motivated to get away from what you fear.
Okay. Yep, absolutely. And Cade, what would be a specific example of that?
Say you're scared of like doing push-ups or like something like that. And the coach threatens you with that like every practice, then you want to do your best.
Yep. Or how about another one? Has anybody ever had this one? If you don't do well on the test, you're not going to be able to go to the amusement park or the movie or play video games. Has anybody ever had that one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've had that one. And so is that motivating by fear?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, you can give me an example of something that's motivated by reward.
Like say if you're playing a baseball game, if you win, you could go like have ice cream. Like maybe
Yep.
you want to work towards having ice cream.
So if your parents say, hey, if you play really well today, you can get ice cream. Has anybody ever gotten a promise of new gear if you hit a home run?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's an idea of motivating by reward. And what Homer Rice, I think, said very accurately is both of those are only temporary. What is the only lasting thing?
Self-motivation
And where does self-motivation come from?
Yourself.
from yourself.
Inside or outside?
Inside.
Inside, right? And you can look at this book or this call, right? There's no requirement to read this book or join this call. You're on this call because you want to be, right? And you want to get better, and you want to figure this out. And that's why I come back to Michael Jordan and taking a look at his documentary, because it really details the last championship run they had, 97 and 98. And at that point, Michael Jordan had already won 5 titles. People were already calling him the greatest basketball player that ever lived. And so what is going on there is you can see the self-motivation he has within him. And that's the big thing, guys. I encourage you in life is developing these disciplines to have your motivation come from within, because there's nothing stronger than that. Frosty, you got anything to add to that?
You guys hear me?
Yep.
No, I'm a huge believer in letting fear be a motivating factor. You know, whether and it has to come from within, because it will allow you to overcome certain obstacles that you are afraid to achieve.
And so I think that's absolutely key. And the big thing I keep going with you guys is make sure that your motivation is coming from within, and it's something you can definitely develop over time. Who wants to read the Wayne Gretzky quote?
I will.
Okay.
The highest compliment that you can pay me is to say that I work hard every day, that I never dog it. Wayne Gretzky.
You guys know who Wayne Gretzky is?
No.
Yeah.
Kate, who's Wayne Gretzky?
He's a hockey player, or he was.
Okay. Is that all?
He
The
was
greatest
good.
hockey player.
I don't know.
So for those of you guys know who Michael Jordan is, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Wayne Gretzky is the Michael Jordan of hockey. I mean, like the greatest player bar none. And so what was his piece in saying the greatest compliment you could pay me? What's the greatest compliment you could pay him?
That he works hard every day.
And that's it, right? Was it how many goals he scored?
No.
How many championships he won? It was all about hard work. It was the intrinsic motivation. It was the satisfaction of knowing he did his best every day. And the greatest thing I love about this is you wake up in the morning, you have a fresh day to go do your best. And some days you're going to go 4 for 4. Some days you're going to go 0 for 4. But you have the opportunity in the process to do your very best. And so what's a great habit to start your day off by doing your best?
Making your bed
So why making your bed?
because you feel like a champion.
Why do you
Like-
feel like a champion when you make your bed?
Because you did something you had control of and you start your day off good.
Right. So is making your bed easy?
Yeah, it's pretty
Yeah.
easy.
Yeah, it's very easy, right? And when it's done, can you see it's done?
Yeah.
Yeah, and you can feel the satisfaction of it. And so you've started your day off accomplishing something. And what they say about success is it's habitual, or it's a habit. And so if you're successful at making your bed, then you're moving on to the next thing to be successful at, to do your best at. There's one other piece to making your bed that's important. You're in your bed in the morning, and when?
And
At
then
night.
Right.
At night. And so if you have one of those days where you did your very best, but you still went 0 for 4, you're going to go back to the bed, and it's going to be a reminder of what?
You had made an accomplishment and you did something.
Right.
Like-
So you started your day off successful. So you're going to be able to get into the bed and it's going to be ready for you to what?
Sleep on.
Sleep.
And rest. And so that what? The next day starts what?
A new day.
Starts a new day and starts off well. What? Who'd like to read the John Wooden quote?
Make each day your masterpiece.
So what does that mean to you?
Like every day is very important, and like just make every day just like count and do it all you can.
Yep. And what's cool about that, and you combine that with the Tom Landry quote around every day you have 100% of your life left. It just reminds me that every morning you start new and you have the opportunity. It's very similar to baseball. Everybody talks about the parallels between baseball and life. Which pitch do we talk about being the most important pitch?
The next one.
The next pitch. So no matter what happened the day before, what day is the most important day?
The next one.
Day.
Right, the day in front of you, the day that you're living, and that's the coolest thing. And so if you want to accomplish your goals, the key is to add up the number of days that you what? Did your best over the number of days that you weren't able to do your best, right? And the whole idea is you want to accomplish more of them. So we talked about doing your best. It's a combination of what? It's on page 33. Doing your best is a combination of what?
Of focus and grit.
Okay, so why focus?
So you can focus on what you want to do, and so like you're like.
So you have to focus on what you're doing at that moment. You have to be in the present to do what, Cap?
To win and
to do your best, right? If
to
you're
do
not
best.
focused. Has anybody ever been in class and been daydreaming?
Yeah.
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 Is it easy to learn the subject when you're thinking about something else?
No.
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 No. So you have to be focused and you have to be present. Why grit?
Because you have to try to do your best. You can't just kind of like give it a half effort and do your best.
Is anything ever handed to you?
No.
No.
No. And so you have to have the grit to do this day in, day out, overcome obstacles and go through that process. As they say, nothing worth doing is easy. So on page 35, Dean Stotts talked about something he did at Stanford. Who can tell me that story?
I can.
Okay.
He would put a styrofoam cup on like the ground where like they were eating, and he would see like which recruits would like pick it up and throw it away, or like some would just leave it there and not like care about it. And
Why
he
did that matter to him?
Because he wanted to see their character. Like,
But does that have anything to do with baseball?
no.
Does it?
No.
Taylor, does it have anything to do with baseball?
Yes, because it shows that that you have a positive attitude, and you would most likely be a good addition to the team.
Right, because let's go back to the Vince Lombardi quote, right? Vince Lombardi said you had to be a champion when?
Always.
Always, regardless of what your activity was, right? And so if I have a beautiful field, has anybody ever been to Sunken Diamond at Stanford University?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it a beautiful field?
It is.
Yeah.
It is a gorgeous field. And if I'm recruiting someone to go there and there is a piece of trash on Sunken Diamond and it's my field, what am I going to want that person to do, Cap?
Pick it up.
And treat it as their own, right? Because that
Yeah.
shows the type of people character team that they are. And so that's
Yeah.
really important. And so doing your best doesn't just apply to baseball, it applies to every aspect of your life. Cap, do you want to read the attributes that we believe are important at Hard 90?
Yeah. Developing a dream, a mission, and goals, planning your time, being on time, being prepared, focusing on the task you are currently working on, giving maximum effort to what you are currently working on, evaluating your performance honestly, making adjustments to achieve great success, evaluating your daily, weekly, and monthly actions toward the achievement of your goals.
Cool. So we've gone over dream, mission, goals, and planning your time. Parker, why is being on time important?
Well, it shows your coach that you want to be there and you care enough to get there when you're supposed to be there.
Right. So, and the interesting thing is the higher levels you go, if you're not on time, you won't be there. And we've talked about that before. But if you're late, what do you miss?
You miss like part of your practice.
Right. So you miss whatever the team was working on, or the teacher, if it's school, was working on to help you get better. But there's one other thing that happens when you're late. How do you feel when you're late?
Out of place.
Out of place. And that there's a word that sums up anytime you don't feel normal. It's called stress. And can you function at your highest level and do your best when you're constantly stressed because you're late? No, right? And so it's a habit that you set up if you are on time, that you're preparing yourself to do your best. Now, the next thing, Cade, that's talked about there is being prepared. Why do you need to be prepared, Cade?
So you can if you're prepared, like you have your mind right and you're ready for whatever comes at you.
Right. So that's right. You're focused, you're in the moment, you're prepared for whatever comes at you. But let's talk about just basic blocking and tackling. If you forget your pencil and your notebook for school, what happens?
You're unprepared.
You're unprepared, but Cade, you're in that class, and Big Joe's really nice, so he's going to let you borrow a pencil and some paper from his notebook, but it comes back to you're unprepared, you're off balance, so you are what?
Stressed.
Right? Stressed. And anytime there's stress, you don't have the opportunity to do your best, which is why being prepared is important. We talked a little bit already about focusing on the task that you're working on. Joe, why do you have to give maximum effort to the task you're working on?
Yeah, well, if you're not giving maximum effort, you're not doing your best.
Right. And we can never determine how good you can be, right? Because if you're always dogging it, are we able ever to see who the real Joe is?
Nope.
The next piece, which is really important, Sam, which is evaluating your performance honestly. Give me an example of a time that you evaluate your performance honestly. Sam? Microphone's not working. Jack, give me an example.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, Sam, you there? All right.
I was accidentally muted. When you're in assessments and you look at the numbers and it's really hard to not be honest with yourself with numbers in front of you.
Right. So this is the goals, right? Objective.
Yeah. If you're like, last time I hit 70 miles an hour and this time I hit 65, something's wrong.
Okay. Now give me an example, because this is really common in youth sports right now. Give me an example when you don't give an honest assessment. How about if you're up to bat and you take the third strike looking? What would a common example of not getting an honest assessment there?
just getting really angry at yourself and like overly angry. And
Okay. Taylor, what would be an example of something that's not an honest assessment when you took that third strike looking?
You make excuses for yourself and you like try to make yourself feel better instead of being honest with yourself and saying, man, I really should have swung at that pitch and not let it go by.
Right. And that's huge, right? Because anytime you don't honestly assess a situation, the antithesis of that is effectively you're making an excuse, which gets to the next one, Taylor, which is about making adjustments. So if you don't give an honest assessment, can you make adjustments?
No.
And in order to achieve great success, what do you have to be able to do?
Make adjustments.
Right, exactly. Parker, the last one is evaluating your daily, weekly, and monthly actions towards the achievement of your goals. Why is that important?
I think it's important because like what you're doing daily is like it's what, like if you're not doing the right things every day and you're kind of like not paying attention, you're not going to be good. Like you're not going to be good enough.
So do you have to have perfect days?
Not necessarily.
Right? I mean, I'd be willing to bet that even Michael Jordan had bad days. He might have even had bad weeks. But if you're assessing weekly, what are you able to do for the next week?
Set goals for yourself to get better.
Right, and make adjustments if you had a bad week, right? Jack, do you want to read the next quote from William James?
Yeah. Most people never run far enough on their first wind to find out they've got a second.
What does that mean in this context?
Most people don't really run or don't really do enough to achieve greatness, but the great ones like run, like always have, like they run the first one, then they run they're good on the second one too.
So I think that was really key what you said about most people don't do enough to achieve greatness. Frosty, what does that mean to you in this context?
Most people give up when they first hit failure. The great ones push through the failure, learn from it, and make adjustments and push through.
Right, and the key thing here, right, is that your goals are 6 to 12 months out. The majority of the people in the world don't stick to something that long, let alone the mission that's 3 to 5 years out, or the dream that's 10 to 15 years out. And so the whole idea is this is a process. And we've got a great story of a kid from our program who pitches at Stanford University right now. When he started at Hard 90, he wasn't on the A team. He wasn't even on the B team, but he was on the C team. Parker, was he the best player in his age group at that age?
No.
Was he good enough to even be in the top 20?
No.
So how did he get to Stanford?
He probably put work in and learned from his failures. Well, not necessarily failures, but just learn from being on the C team versus being on the A team.
Right.
And,
Joe, do you think he went directly from the C team to Stanford?
No.
So what do you think he did?
I think he put in work. Well, yeah.
And that's the key thing, because here's the thing. My best friend was cut his freshman year of high school, cut. And back when I played, they didn't have any other options. So if you didn't get to play on your high school team, and they didn't have a freshman team, it was just JV. If you didn't get to play on your JV high school team as a freshman, Cap, do you know what you got to do?
To not play.
Yeah, you got to run track or do something else.
Yeah.
And he ended up pitching in the Division II College World Series because he looked at it as a long-term process of doing his best. And today, what you see a lot of people is when they get kicked in the teeth, knocked down, they go find something else to do that's easier, right? And our guy who's pitching at Stanford right now, he didn't go find something to do that was easier. He worked harder and longer and went through the process. And so that's really what that quote is about, which is about pushing through to get your second win, your third win, your fourth win. And so it's really a process. And I really end it with, don't ask for an easier road, ask for the strength for the road that you've chosen. What does that mean, Cap?
Even if the road gets, tough, always, or just keep pushing. Don't be like, oh, just take this easier route. Always just push through the hard.
Right. And what we're going to talk about next time is some of that strength or encouragement. Where can you find that?
Your teammates.
Your teammates. Well, that's good. That's really all I have for today around doing your best. Frosty, you got anything else to add?
No, I'm good.
Cool. You guys got any other questions or anything before we wrap up?
Chapter 10 next week.
Chapter 10 on Thursday. We're going to talk about working with your team. So keep
Okay.
working. I know that this process is tough given that we can't see each other, but I enjoy the check-ins, and I hope you do too. And I'm looking forward to talking to you guys on Thursday. Good work.
Thank you, Coach.